new beat to your drum. Achieve success with Global.Media.com and celebrate it with or without champagne or rum.
Yay! So only you have the 30-second version of the of my intro songs now, Lisa. But
Well, then I'm blessed. And blessed and feeling
what,
special. I'm good
why,
with it.
why be like that? Honestly, how are you, Lisa?
I am extra special. God made me extra special from the beginning, so you should expect nothing, nothing else. But welcome again, my friends, to another episode where we talk about something related to perimenopause and menopause. And today is no different. I'm joined by my two lovely co-hosts and a very special guest that I'll get to in a minute. Let me all right, let me pass the mic to Paulette. We're going to do 30 seconds of introductions because this discussion is going to be juicy.
Okay.
So let's do a quick introduction and then we'll start. So Paulette, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm Paulette Hallam. Most of you know me already. Very, very pleased to be here and always happy to support Lisa. To any.
Me, no, I'm just here for the sake of being here, right? I'm allowed to speak sometimes, but I try not to. At best of times, what do? I publish books. I just published a children's book, Giovanni, and something like that. I can publish books and just they go straight past my head, right? No, but it's worth looking out for though. William Planger's Giovanni book. That's what I do for a living. I'm Lisa's psychic, really. Lisa just abuses me in public. It's fine.
Yes, our quote-unquote producer of the show, and I do not abuse him whatsoever. I'm the nicest person on the planet. And let me introduce a new friend. Josephine, let the people know who you are in, I don't know, in 30 seconds. I'm not sure how you're going to do it, but let's see.
I am a daughter and a niece. And I was delighted to be invited by Lisa just a week and 2 days ago to be present today, to take part, because we got chatting about why I returned to Trinidad from 80 years in the UK. And I explained that my dad was diagnosed with dementia in 2014, and I returned to Trinidad. And of course, being of that time, it's caregiving and also going through this whole cycle of perimenopause and menopause. Back to you, Lisa.
And she warned us about the dog, and just as she started speaking.
I like how the dog piped up as soon as you started talking. The dog's
Yes,
like,
that's what she
I
started.
can speak
Oh
to
my goodness.
It's my show, not yours.
Welcome to anyone who's joining live. Please put where you're joining from. We cannot see you unless you put something in the comments.
Liana's the first one to speak today.
Yes, the first one. So welcome, Liana. So for those of you who are new to the show, who are new to me, my name is Lisa Favec. I'm a dietitian, author, and coach for women's health, but my focus, my specialty, my passion is perimenopause and menopause because we don't speak about it enough. There's still a lot of misinformation surrounding those topics. And especially where I live in the Caribbean, we still find it very taboo to talk about these topics and anything to do with women's health, really. And as Josephine was saying, about 2 weeks ago, there was a local LinkedIn event. And I really didn't want to go. I would have preferred to, go under my covers and just, stay there in the AC and just, relax. But something kept telling me to go. And I thoroughly enjoyed the event. I met so many great people. And at the end of the event, almost when they're about to close, I met this lovely lady, Josephine, and we ended up speaking for about 45 minutes, or almost close to an hour. Never met her before, never saw her before. And now she feels like a long lost best friend. And one of the many conversations we were having was about that caregiver role, being in menopause, being in perimenopause, and women now, we find ourselves in what they're terming sandwich generation, where we're taking care of children, but now we're also taking care of aging parents. And whether that's children going off to college or it's young children, or a lot of times I'm finding now that children are moving back into their parents' home or never leaving. Maybe they're saving up for a house, or they just don't want to venture out into the world with everything that's going on. They feel safe in the parents' home and parents can accommodate them. But we also have the aging parent side where those parents are now moving into the woman's home, or the woman has to go every day and take care of their parents. And it could be very stressful. So, menopause already adds that stress, adds that anxiety, that depression, just from the fluctuating hormones. You have her work life, her home life, everything she's supposed to take care of. And now you're adding that caregiver role on top of everything else. And notice I haven't talked about the woman's needs yet, her own self care. So when I met up with Josephine and she was telling me that she actually decided to move back to Trinidad to take care of her parents, I found her story very intriguing. And, many women might say, well, you've had this life in London, you've made a life for yourself. Why move back and uproot everything and just move back to take care of? And I'm sure there's someone else that could have done it, but you chose to do it. So I just wanted you to share a bit of your story. What was life before moving back? What were some of the challenges you were having in London? But why, despite everything, you decided that you needed to come back to take care of your parents?
Thank you, Lisa. I lived in London for 28 years. Born in Trinidad and Tobago, but mostly Trinidad. I left relatively young. My mom and dad were very adamant about me and my 5 siblings going to the UK to study. And I love London. Even today, I was talking with someone about money, and I'm talking in pounds and pence. I've only been back 12 years. This year will be 12 years. But it's been a tough adjustment because I left as a teenager. And for me, London has so many opportunities and options, and you have the option to do something. Up to you if you want to take advantage of it. Up to you if you don't want to. And that's what I love, and I miss, and the variety of the restaurants and the different cultures there. Yes, we have different cultures here in Trinidad and Tobago, which is predominantly Indian, Chinese, Syrian, Lebanese, African, European, American. We have it. But London has so much more. I think it's one of the most diverse cities in the world, either next to or before New York. And so I worked with people from so many different cultures, Poland, Eastern Europe, Russia, Australia, I could go on calling all the different names in the, countries. And in terms of opportunities and options, I was able to be a volunteer with the London 2012 Olympic Games. This was via Sydney 2000. I was living in Sydney at the time. Before I went to Australia, I was hearing, it's going to be crazy, it's going to be manic. The people are leaving in droves. Run for your life, flee. And then I got there, I saw an advert, and I thought, let me just be part of it, because I don't know when next I will be in another city hosting the games. And if it's going to be chaos, then just be in the thick of it. Well, it was anything else but chaos. It was super well organized, and I got an understanding of the Olympics because my family, they're not sporty per se. And I have a sister who played hockey. We used to do horse riding. I was predominantly dance, and so it was so amazing. And then I went back to London, and London was putting in the bid for the games. We won it. And then I thought, okay, let me volunteer again, because obviously now I have no accommodation to pay for, and based on the venues, I could potentially walk home if I wanted to. And it was amazing. And so, as an offshoot from that, now being a games maker, as the volunteers were called, or also called, I was able to get involved with the late Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. And so I got to be in the gardens of Buckingham Palace, in the gardens. And as I mentioned, I love to dance. And I love to say one of my claims to fame is I'm probably the only person, if not one of the few people in the whole world who has been to Buckingham Palace Gardens, who danced around the tree, danced around a tree. Stone cold sober. I don't need alcohol. I don't need encouragement. It was a beautiful song being sung by Catherine Jenkins, the world soprano. And it was written by, oh my gosh, I can see his name, but he's well known. It probably comes to me later, but it was sung in Italian and it was beautiful. And it was the Commonwealth Youth Orchestra, sorry, the UK Youth Orchestra who were playing, and the oldest was probably 21 years old. So super talent and absolutely amazing to be in that environment. So these are some of the experiences I had thanks to my parents. And then mom and dad came up to London for their annual checkups. And just before that, my dad started saying he was having problems calculating my mom's insulin because my mom was diabetic. And he was having problems calculating it. Now, a little light went on in my head because my dad was an accountant. So mental gymnastics was easy for him. And I was like, eh? But dementia never entered my head because I had not really known anyone who had had it. And so I did not know really what signs to look for and so on. And then we had some excitement in London, where dad managed to get the attention of someone either entering or leaving the apartment block. I don't remember now exactly. I tell them that he and his wife are being held against their will. So I woke up to the sound of banging on the front door of the apartment, and I jumped up, and my dad goes to open the door. And I say, no, Dad, don't open it. But he opens the door, and there's that of the British police coming through to the door. And they're there, and he's like, someone called for help. And my dad, clear articulation. He proceeds to tell them that he and his wife are being held against their will. And I'm like, Dad? And so I explained I was a daughter. I had my passport, British passport. I had their passports, and I took it, went and got it. I explained to the police what I was doing because years ago, my dad had always said to us, explain what you're doing to the police and do exactly that. Part of his rationale for that is that here in Trinidad and Tobago, the police carry guns. Granted, the British police don't carry guns, but again, I was trained. You tell them what you're going to do and do exactly that. So I got their passports, got my passport, showed it to the police. And then one of them took me upstairs, because it's a 2-level apartment, to basically speak with me. And my dad was with, and my mom eventually woke up. She's had lost her eyesight as a result of diabetic complications. And she came outside, and then they're left there with the other police officer. So luckily, my sister, who also lives in the UK, she had put up photographs from her wedding. So everyone is smiling, looking happy, looking, very cordial. And so at a glance, she was able to see that this is actually a happy family. It's a happy household. And I called my sister, who was on the continent, and said to her, Mom and Dad are okay. However, the police are here. And at that time, I didn't really know what it is that my dad had done. But the police officer then explained, and my sister spoke with him, and she said, my dad has just been diagnosed with dementia, etc., etc. And then my sister hot-footed it back to London. And while she was on the train, getting back to the airport and so on, she was making plans for my mom and dad to return to Trinidad the next day. And I accompanied them. However, I actually left the apartment that day, or not too long afterwards, to just try and release some of the heat in the apartment, because my dad was saying to the police officer, he did not know who I was and he didn't feel safe, and could he go with them, wherever it is they're going to next. And we told him, no, we can't do that. So my sister got someone to come and stay with my parents, and I left the apartment. And then I came back and she's like, well, okay, we're going to send them back to Trinidad. I traveled back with them. I stayed. I was supposed to stay, I think it was 1 week, but I missed the date. And I was gotten a temporary job and I was working, so I ended up staying a few more months. In that time, my dad said in one of the paranoia moments, he felt happier when I was around. Why did he feel happier? Because I understood a lot of his likes and dislikes. He loved to dance, and so do I. And so I was able to assist with his paranoia moments. And then gradually in time, he started to decline further and further. And my mom's self also then started to decline. One of the things I shared with Lisa when we met just over a week and a bit ago, that I made a promise to myself. I was going to seek to keep my skills up, because I had read so many stories of persons who had become caregivers and they lost their sense of self. They became so consumed with looking after the parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, spouse, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. And I made a promise to myself, I was not going to do that. Was it easy? No. Because that caregiving aspect, and then my own health, and the doctor would say to me, Josephine, you have to take care of yourself. You cannot get sick, because who's going to take care of you? Who's going to take care of your parents? So therefore, it was a case of trying to manage that caregiving duty, and also, as Lisa titled this evening, how to be a rock and not lose your sense, not lose your ground, or not to lose ground, not to lose your sense of self.
Yeah. So Josephine, I just want to put a pin on, because you said something important there, but I also wanted to give Annie a chance to just welcome the persons in the audience, because they're also making comments as well. Mm-hmm. Annie, I don't know if you could see all of them, because Restream is what it does to us. I'm also looking on my phone. So if you see me looking off, it's because I'm checking my phone as well.
I can see quite a few. So Yolanda, welcome. How you doing? Glad you're here. We got Christy as well. So, Christy, we still got to sort out a time to meet. Yeah, so first time we booked went wrong. The amazing Jackie's here. Again, if you haven't been to Jackie's show, ladies, I don't know why you haven't been to Jackie's show. Just Jack.
Yes, it needs to be a guest.
Oh no, Paulette. Okay, go. Paulette hasn't
because it's in the middle of the blooming night time.
Just swap a day around. It's worth it. It's worth it. You just can't.
No, Paulette needs her rest as well. It's very late for her.
Jackie's energy.
And you're the only one that doesn't sleep. Okay, the rest of us need our rest. Okay, we're not vampires.
I'll leave it there then. Fine. Jackie, I tried, right? I tried, Jackie. They're missing out. How you doing, Josh? Twice in one day.
Yes. Very happy to see you.
There's Lisa and the new friend. That's Josephine. That's that one there. And there was Superman. That's not me. Okay. And my sis. There you go. That's you.
Yes. Superman,
so welcome everyone. Serena, I don't think we've met before. It's always great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Serena was also at the LinkedIn event, the local event. So hi, Serena. It's nice to see you here.
I was going to say, like, Josephine, have you seen the post that Lisa did?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she
And
can't
I
be
was like, wow.
Yes, well, I had to. It was so important to me for me to celebrate that moment, especially since I did not want to go, and many of the introverts there didn't want to show up. We had a little introverts club going, but we really enjoyed it, and it's something that we plan to do again.
the
Yeah.
introverts together. I
Yes,
like that idea.
yes,
The introverts nightmare. They call it, right?
yes. Talking to people in a small space.
Hello, how are you
But
doing?
it was a fun evening though.
Yes, it was.
When I saw the post,
Um,
I was like, wow. Now this is Lisa, super nice Lisa. So it must have been good. That's what I figured. And so nice to meet the Josephine that was referred to.
Likewise.
I'll say for sure. So
Yes.
I'm gonna be on Bill's show next Thursday, so I'm told. So
okay.
do connect. Well, I'm gonna invite. I always invite my friends in. At least you're gonna get messages.
Yes, William has some really nice shows. It's in the evening as well, but it's really nice.
Okay.
Lisa, I'm not gonna read your comment. No, I'll read your comment because it's one of the comment. Welcome everyone. So glad
Oh
you're
my
here.
gosh, unnecessary, but thank you. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
You should do comments. I'm
Is
doing.
that everyone?
I'm
I
doing.
think that's everyone.
No,
Did you
that's not
did you
everyone.
say hi to Allison?
That's not everyone. I can't see Alison yet.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
this is Alison.
See, yeah.
This is Alison. How you doing,
Um,
Alison? You're showing up as LinkedIn user. That's why I don't know when it's Alison. I'm sure it's Alison, right? For sure. Linda, all the way in Canada. How you doing, Linda? Hope that book is coming along nicely. I thought it was all, but it's not all. It's not all. So what was Serena saying? It's same. I was in two minds, and it was brilliant. See?
yes.
Showing
Yes.
up in the networking event in real life days is quite hard. Hello, Dr.
Hi, Leslie,
Leslie.
my Sachi sister.
Yeah, it's a mindset genius. Glad you're here. Miss Pepperoni, I tell you, she's turned up to a show. She never
Yes.
in the shows, right? Like, she must really like you, Lisa. I swear.
Oh, yes. Noni's a good friend. I'm Nan.
I know.
Oh my
She's here.
goodness.
Miss
Yes.
Noni's here. That's an important thing.
I think that's everyone for now.
Yeah, that's everything.
Paulette, I wanted to pass the mic to you for a bit because with everything that Josephine described, and I didn't realize that part with the police, so that was surprising to me. But
It was very traumatic, so I tend not to speak about it until in the last 2 or 3 years, actually.
I could imagine. Well, no, I can't imagine. But Paulette, we talk about that sandwich generation, that new term, and everything that, I mean, Josephine's case might have been extreme, maybe not for some people, especially when you're dealing with dementia. But what sort of toll does that play on someone's mental health, especially when you're going through menopause?
I have two stories to tell you very briefly, but both very relevant.
Yeah.
The first one is my brother's wife. Her mother, the gentlest person you could ever meet, 4'10", probably weighing 6 stone, if that. Look, ditty little tiny thing. Took a knife to a 6 foot tall husband. Luckily, nothing happened. Then there was another incident where she picked up, it was I don't know whether it was a walking stick or some kind of stick that was kept by the front. It must have been a walking stick or some sort of aid. And she just put it across his shins. And for no reason, she just hated him so much she wanted to hurt him. And he never recorded these things. He only told his daughters after she had really gone into a coma where she really didn't have any opportunity to speak about it. And if they had have admitted the psychoses, if they had admitted that there were these very violent, very dangerous moments, they would have got a lot more help. But because he was embarrassed and he tried to hide it from the girls and protect them, I suppose, and protect his wife, because he felt like he didn't want to betray her. When she went downhill, she lived for 6 years with having got through COVID 4 or 5 times in a home. She was living at home with him. He was looking after her as a main caregiver. Then he had a stroke and died. The carers found him in bed, dead. And she was in the front room in her hospital bed, like a little tiny thin skeleton of a woman being fed through a tube in her stomach. And they said, hospital, we've got to go now into a care home where there's a hospital staff available to look after you. 6 years she's lived for. She died last year, and latter part of last year. And that means that they sold their bungalow for £400,000, and there is £60,000 left. The rest has gone on care fees, care home, caregivers. And even though the last 3 to 4 months, they said it really was end of life, there's been a lot of arguing, to-ing, fro-ing, court cases and all sorts. One situation. The second situation, Charles's mother has been diagnosed with dementia. At this stage, she no longer can drive, she can no longer cook, she can no longer be in charge of anything that there's any risk to herself. She's monitored if she's doing the washing. She's allowed to iron, but they're careful about what goes in the ironing box. So it's really the flat things, like pillowcasey type things. If there's a shirt needs ironing, he gets up early in the morning and does it, so that she doesn't know that they just turn up done. Some fairy in the night does them. She's very angry. She says to me things like, I'm trapped. I'm not allowed out. They won't let me do anything. Now, Charles's sister is going through the menopause. Charles's sister is autistic. She is struggling like I can't tell you, because she has really nowhere to go, no one to speak to about it. No, Charles is quite calculating, cold, matter of fact, kind of it is what it is, we'll deal with it as we deal with it. His dad says, at the moment I'm coping, therefore he's coping, right? Until he's not coping, he's coping. And so that means for Charles, he's coping. But I look at his sister and the toll it's taking on her. And the reason I bring this story up is because my brother's wife was going through the menopause, and she ended up having to go to the hospital, to the doctors, and get estrogel and help, because it was the first time she admitted the menopause was affecting her, because it was on top of everything else. It was layer upon layer of stress, and you can cope with so much, and then the menopause is just like, that's the bit that they say, the straw that breaks the camel's back is the expression we use over here. That was when she went to the hospital and they said, right, yes, we'll give you this estriol gel, try it and see how you get on. And she rubs it into her thighs, and there's a big joke now, if she's gratty or if she's particularly ratty or grumpy, they'll say, go and put your gel on, mum, and everyone laughs. but at least it's been made into a kind of family, it's okay sort of thing. But that was her. When I saw his sister last weekend, I was not backwards. She had the skunk root, when somebody hasn't had their hair done, and so she's got all these roots showing. She just looked, I'm going to say grubby, but I don't mean grubby. I just mean unkept, uncared for. And so I've made together a care package for her. And included in that, I went and got her a voucher to go and get her hair done and dyed at a local hairdresser's, which it's her birthday next week anyway, so it's just a bit more money. But what the hell, he's not happy, he's grumpy about it, but hey, I see something different to what he sees. He's a man, he just sees life goes on, you get on with it. But this is when you're never had a boyfriend, you've never had a friend, your parents are your world, right? When anything happens to his parents, Liz's world falls apart. We will be all she has. There's only the two of them, so that makes it her plus us three. We've already bought her a place to live, but she lives in rent-free. But the strain on that girl's face was evident. And I was broken. And when I said to Charles about it, he was like, well, you do what you think's right. Typical man, right? But this is the point that you're making. How do you care for others without letting yourself get lost within the abyss of what it all is? How do you care for others when you start to realize there's no time for you and you're working? How do you care for others when there's no time, there's no money, there's no effort, there's no input, there's nobody going to say anything, so you can just let yourself go? And this is what happens time and time again. I did a little survey earlier on and looked up at how many women who are caregivers feel like they're the bottom of the pile. 84%. Now that's only a survey of 50 people who responded, but that shows you how we really do put ourselves at the bottom of the pile. And for me, this, what you're talking about now, it could never be more relevant or prevalent or important to everyone in this room. Make provisions, make sure you've got, somebody who is the the paperwork is done that says that person has a duty of care to look after you, or that you have proxy over their affairs at the bank, at the doctors. You need to do all these things when you're first found out, not when you're finding out halfway through. Like my brother's wife didn't have a clue how far it had gone. She had no idea Mum had had these psychotic episodes. If she had have done, she would have not wanted her dad to be unsafe. So we need to record these informations, not just for ourselves, but for the medics, so they know at what point in this journey, because you can go off very quickly. Charles's mum cannot now have a conversation with you and put a verb in the conversation. It's the this that did the that did the this that did the this, that thing. And you're like, give me a clue, and you're trying to keep up and you don't want to appear rude, and you're going, smiley, smiley, yep, I'm with you. And she says, do you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yeah. She said, well, why are you so happy about it? I'm like, well, I'm not happy about it, but I'm happy listening to the conversation. I've got no clue. I mean, no clue. And then I find out it's about the neighbour's cat that died. And it was this, that happened, and then this happened, and that happened. And I'm going, yeah, smiley, smiley. Completely the wrong reaction. But I don't know what reaction I should be giving, because without a verb or an expression from her or clues from the family, I'm lost. I might as well be talking to this cup, an inanimate object. And that is as harsh as it can get. We don't know how far it's going to go before his dad says, I can't cope anymore. He's going to be 86 in a month's time. She's 82. That's a lot to expect of anybody in that age, to be looking after somebody. He's doing all the cooking, all the gardening. It's too much.
And you mentioned something, sorry to cut you, but you mentioned that part about the guilt. Do I put my parents in a care home? Do I keep them in their house? Okay, if I'm because to put them in a home, that's a big step. Most parents, they don't want to leave their family home because it also signals, okay, a loss of independence. But okay, if they're staying at home, then who takes care of them? Am I hiring a living person, or do I go over there every day? Do I move in with my parents? Do they move in with me? And all of those things on top of menopause can be really, really challenging financially, emotionally, because you still have everything else to do. But now it's expected that you're going to take care of parents. But what does that bring with it? I'm seeing some comments in
Just
the.
a quick one, Lisa. If you can just imagine for 1 second, we all carry a rucksack of worries. We all
Yes.
carry a rucksack of stuff, right? That's our own stuff. And then you add in your parents' stuff. Then you add in your parents' illness. Then you add in the financial concerns.
Yes, the
Then
cost
you
of
add in,
everything. Yeah.
I'm just trying to say to you, that rucksack is suddenly weighing you down, and you're crawling on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's the fact that we have to accept, that you cannot do this on your own. You do need support and help, and it's nothing to be ashamed of to ask for it. And in the UK, you have to pay for everything if you want it. Because I'm telling you, a carer now, if you're lucky to get a carer through the NHS, you'll get 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour at night. That's it. They're on their own for the rest of the day with the other partner.
Or it falls off.
Or if I may say that here in Trinidad, we have to pay for everything as well, Trinidad and Tobago. And yes, putting your parents in a home is expensive. However, before we had any clue this was going to happen, we made a promise to them we would not put them in a home. Now, like your mother-in-law, was it? My dad, paranoia, and very thankfully, we found on a property back in 2001, whereby there's a house and an annex, so everyone with a shared driveway, and own entrances, so everyone was living next to each other. And I am constantly, even now, grateful that we have this property, because when my mom would call and say, "Your father thinks the bedroom's on fire. Your father thinks his leg is broken," all I had to do, and it's usually at nighttime, of course, I just had to pull on some more clothes, trundle down the driveway, let myself in, bounce into the bedroom and say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" And of course, looking very carefully around. He too was having the knives and baseball bats. I don't know where he got this baseball bat from, but it was there in the apartment. Or, a broomstick. And one day he was talking about bandits. He'd had a knife when I went in. But thankfully, he never tried to stab me with it. He did try to choke me one morning when I was trying to change his diapers, because he had ended up in diapers. But that was about it, and then he'd fight me trying to change him. When I let myself in and he had the knife, he was talking about bandits, robbers being on the driveway. And then I heard shooting coming from the television. So then I realized that it was an advert for CSI LA or New York or one of these, crime shows. And so I immediately connected the dots. He can't watch anything like this. Only feel good, happy music. So I'd mentioned earlier that I understood the sort of music he loved. And that was a bit of a challenge with the family. Don't put on the news. We have to just play happy, feel good things for him. And my mom too. And it got to one point, my mom had a stroke in 2017. So this is 2014 with dad dementia. He's declining. My mom, 2017, early 2017, she has her first stroke. Luckily, I had gone across to my aunt, his sister, who lived in Germany, when she had a stroke in 2013. And so I knew about the signs like, unable to move her arm and things like this. So I was able to tell my sibling who called me and said, when you come home, you normally check on mom and dad. Well, make sure check on mom and dad, check on mom particularly. I'm like, well, why? Because we found her lying flat, she couldn't move her hands, she couldn't sit up, etc. I was like, but that's a stroke. And then it was a whole journey of trying to figure out what do we do, because in Trinidad, the hospitals, public health service isn't as good as the UK, even though people complain about it. And then, of course, private healthcare is very expensive. And my mom did not have health insurance because of being diagnosed with diabetes in the 1960s. And in those days, you could not get health insurance for a disease. So needless to say, we're going through this. But I wanted to touch on, in terms of the experience with your sister-in-law, that you're running ragged. I had dad on the go, mom on the go. I had an uncle who was unwell. He did not share with me for about a year. He had cancer. And then the type of cancer. How I figured it out is that we have a particular medical center, public health medical center here in Trinidad, that there's a particular building where you go for chemo and radiation. And he told me he was there one day, and immediately I knew cancer. But I respected that he didn't want to tell me anything. So I was trying to support him as well, picking him up, sometimes accompanied by one of my dogs, and drive him for about a good hour to go back home again. And then I'd have the company of the dog making my way back. And then we check on mom and dad and so on. And then my brother started being unwell. And then my sister was unwell. When do you have time to think about you? When do you have time? And thankfully, I didn't have the challenge of autism or anything like this. But you really are at the bottom of the pile. And so on a morning, I would just pull on a t-shirt, some leggings or exercise shorts, because I wasn't working at the time, thankfully. Also, there was a period when I was working, and then my boss said to me, Josephine, because he knew about them, he said, Josephine, do you want to come a little bit later? I was like, thank you so much. Because if I went about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up and think, let me just go check on mom and dad. And then if my dad needed tidying because he's, done a poo in his diaper and played pat a cake with it, it's bed sheets, bed, floor, walls, maybe even the bathroom to be cleaned. And that would take me a good hour, and then to put, of course, the laundry on. And yes, it was pretty much me, even though I have siblings, because it's usually one person.
Oh, yeah.
And I read an article around the time that Steve Jobs, even President Obama, they standardized their wardrobe. So for me, I thought, you know what? Just standardize my wardrobe. T-shirt and shorts. Who's going to see you? Who's going to care? When I started back working, which was just after my dad passed, actually, I had a stock wardrobe. This dress, that dress, the next dress. And I think I had 5 dresses. but I just rotated on the week because I did not have the mental energy to be thinking, what am I going to wear? What shoes am I going to wear with it? What jewelry? And the women here in Trinidad and Tobago, oh my gosh, Lisa would testify. They come out with the jewelry and the nails. And I grew up being told by my dad, neutral nail polish. So pinks, red, at a push, neutral, browns. Here it is yellow and purple. And don't even start talking about the gemstones, okay? And maybe they might have gone to a fete, as you call it, a party that weekend, or even the Friday night. But the hair and the nails, and I'm just like, Josephine, don't even bother to try. I have fibroids. So I was experiencing, and I was listening actually to one of the prior LinkedIn's that Lisa and the three of you had done, which was called How to Feel Seen, Heard, and Loved in Menopause. And yeah, I was battling with the fibroids that are still present. And then I did not have a period, I think it was in February or March. My mom is there. My dad, he's now on IV fluid because he's not eating or wanting to drink much. My brother and my uncle are in hospital at the same time. This is 2019 Carnival. So I'm trying to go from one, and of course, they were not in the same hospital. That would be too easy. So I went to my brother and then on to my uncle and then back to pick up my nephew who had dropped off to go and see his dad. And I just felt, at one point, I fell asleep at the steering wheel whilst sitting in traffic. I woke with a start. Luckily, I think I put the handbrake on. My foot was off the gas, petrol, so I did not move anywhere. Lisa asked earlier to share why it is I did it. Why did I move back after all this time? And someone actually said to me, in speaking with them, you did your duty. For me, it wasn't duty. And the word that came to me last year, love. It was pure love. Love for I shared about the opportunities I had. If it were not for them wanting all of us to go to the UK, 6 children, all of us to go to the UK, I may never have had the opportunity to go to Australia, to go to Sydney, experience the Olympic Games there, to then go back to London, experience the London 2012 Games, perform in the Paralympics opening ceremony, to be a stone cold sober dancing in the grounds of Buckingham Palace, okay? And a whole host of other things that I'm like, it was love. And would I do it again in a heartbeat? Because it was stressful. My older siblings countermanding what I wanted to do, it was rough. And then, of course, once Sister did put forward the suggestion of maybe we need to put them in a home, I was like, no, we promised. If we have to bring the home to them, we will bring the home. So we ended up, hiring staff. And in fact, that was forced on us because my mom lost the ability to swallow in 2018. And as you talked about, they sold, your in-laws' home and there's only £60,000 left. Yeah. We got some money. At the time, all of this was done just after my dad passed. And my sister who lived in London, very thankfully, she took up the expenses. And then with the exchange rate, it was still a lot, but it was not as much as if we tried to do it locally. And then, I went to the doctor at the end of 2019, who took blood work and said, yes, you are in menopause. Congratulations. Now, is it that I was too busy to be thinking about or realizing I was going through a hot flush? Because, of course, you can imagine, and Trinidad is very hot. And I did not drive with air conditioning because having spent most of my life in central heating, I just wanted the fresh air. And then I sought to go to exercise. And I was doing kickboxing and, every week or twice a week. Because again, as I mentioned, my promise was to keep my skills up, and that my hair might go on down and I might go out without makeup and so on, but I was seeking to keep my own fitness going because of the exercise. And that helps with your mental health. Even if it's just going for a walk. Someone said to me during this period, "Oh, it's okay for you," because I wasn't working. "You're on a holiday." I'm like, "No, because when I leave by my parents, the bedroom, I'm thinking, what have I missed? What can I try next? What, medication do I need to get for next week? What doctor's appointments do I need to get?" Trying to get the different food supplies to make it things, because I was making them smoothies with cocoa, which is supposed to be very good for the brain, papaw or papaya, depending on what pronunciation you're used to, you know, coconut water to keep them hydrated because it was very hot still for them. So your brain is constantly going. And then, of course, you're realizing, well, things are not quite right with you. But then you don't have time. Yes. So at work, I gradually realized, well, am I having hot flushes? Because my colleagues are saying that they're feeling cold, but I'm the only one in the facility wanting a fan on. And then try to negotiate, "Josephine, oh gosh, we're feeling cold. Can you switch it off for a bit?" And then, well, weight gain. I can't say that I noticed any weight gain because I stopped weighing myself. And then I did get sick in August 2024. I did get sick. And I was unwell for 3 months before I actually got the diagnosis from the doctor. And it was that time period of basically not really looking after myself, because I was looking after myself, being alert to me and what I was going through, that yes, my body started giving out. And I responded well to the medication, and I was off work for 7 months. And then now I'm feeling, so an expression came to me today, which is that you might buy a new car and it starts giving trouble. I feel like a well maintained second-hand car.
With not very many miles on the clock.
Well, actually, there are quite a few. But I feel now with that enforced break that, and it took me a while to come through it because I was in hospital for 10 weeks. And if any of my colleagues are listening and they've signed in, they're probably hearing this for the first time. When I came out, I was very fragile. That I was kept wearing my mask because my immune system was compromised. And if anyone came too close to me, I was like jumping, mentally 10 feet back. Because even though we had only just come through COVID, 2 years before, there are people who are still coughing, sneezing, wanting to not social distance anymore. And so I had to make sure I kept doing that. And then there were my follow-up visits with the clinic, etc., etc. Mental health, your physical health, throw in menopause. It's a balancing act. It's a juggling act. And as someone mentioned, an acquaintance on LinkedIn, I'm still yet to meet her, but she makes amazing posts. Someone said, "Well, how do you have it all?" And she says, "I don't. You can't have it all." And she's a business owner and travels a lot. And then she has a family. and then she has her own self, and. You can't have it all. And so, the message I would give to listeners and anyone who, any of you who are perhaps going to speak to your family and friends about this, don't try to have it all. Simplify your life so that you can be there for your loved ones if that's what you want to do. So I mentioned t-shirts and leggings, t-shirts and exercise shorts, sandals, because of course, being in the tropics, I can do that. Don't be thinking about how am I looking? Do I have lipstick on? Makeup, my hair, my nails. Simplify.
And also the
Because
financials and the power of attorneys, getting all
yes,
of that in place
yes,
long before it becomes a big
yes,
problem.
yes,
Because trust me, that's if it's
yes,
not in place, that's why
yes,
they've lost all this money to care,
Mm-hmm.
because
yes,
it was just like no will, no power of
yes,
attorney, no nothing. So
yes,
at least in Charles's parents' case, we were brave enough to sit them down and have this
yes,
conversation because
yes,
we've got the experience of what's happened in my brother's life
yes,
with his wife. But it's really important that we talk about this. Don't be
yes,
ashamed to have the conversation when you're not
mhm,
money grabbing, you're not trying to take over, you're not trying
mhm,
to take over the power. What you're doing is taking away a whole load of headaches from your
mhm,
family and
yes,
potentially a huge financial loss.
mhm.
So it's not
And
wrong to ask. Over to you, Lisa.
I
I
just
let
want
me
to
just
put up,
very quickly. So let me just say very
mm,
quickly with regards to that.
yeah,
I had an idea of what was going to come with the dementia, my dad's decline, and then I was going to my mom because I joined 2 or 3 Facebook groups around dementia, and people were asking about what can I do. I don't have this, and people were like, people saying, "This is my experience. Get the will. Get." I think it's also called a living will. So you have the power of
yeah,
attorney, but then you have another will, so
yeah,
that if it is that you go into a coma, you can say, "Well, I don't want to be resuscitated." Now, I know in the UK, I had experience with a friend that their mother passed in hospital, and someone from the hospital called. Somehow they called me because they found me in the register to get confirmation that their mother did not want to be resuscitated, and then that caused another drama because of why did they call me? I'm not next of kin, and da. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So get your documents. Yes, it's additional cost in going to a lawyer and so on, or getting these documents in place, but get them in place. Luckily, one of my siblings had organized power of attorney, so we didn't have that drama. This is when my parents were well. We didn't have that drama. When my uncle passed, he did not have a will. So that caused another expense and drama. And in Trinidad and Tobago, it took years. When my uncle passed in 2019, we only got it sorted out last year for someone to be able to actually know my uncle was an aunt, sorry, who did not have a will. But to get, probate, to get power of attorney and stuff, things like this. Take the time. I know it's a headache, but do this headache first as soon as you can, else you'll have a migraine. And then that's just adding to your stress level and so on. Yeah. So
Let me
Lisa.
put I need to, yeah, put a pause in because we have some comments coming through that I want to get to before my computer crashes again. Annie, are you there or have you run under the covers? Annie, there you are.
The nice silence is what I call it, right? Okay. So let's welcome Dr. Roxana. How are you doing, Prof?
Yes.
Glad you're here. I see Jay. Jay calls us storytellers when he's the storyteller. So
Yes.
Ross is storyteller. You're too funny, Jay. Welcome, Ross. We see you as well, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, welcome.
We see Dr. Marcia from your part of the world as well. Not quite Trini, I don't think, but I'm glad you're here. Who else?
Yes.
The amazing Mel. Be visible with Mel. That's what it's called. And she talks about her trust. The trust thing that she talks about at the best of times. And I do connect with her. Says hi to all of you. What do we have? Jane's here as well.
Yes, so Jane is leaving some good comments.
My friends in the sandwich generation, raising a teen and care for an alien father. Yeah, we're all in the sandwich generation, aren't we?
I think it's more prevalent now where children aren't really leaving the home and choosing to stay, because before they would move out, get their own home, get their own families. But right now I'm finding they're moving their partner into their parents' home. Whether, to save money to buy their own home, or it's just more comfortable. So everyone is still staying at home.
Yes,
even my siblings are still at home with mom.
Really?
Which, I mean, it works out for her, but
so when you, as Jay says, when you're the caregiver, you have to let others take care of you.
But there's to have that support. Now, Serena mentions that here in Trinidad, you can't get free caregivers or free support via the government. But you have to jump through hoops for that, was my experience. And then try to find out. And then it's only about 2 or 3 months. And as student nurses, we had to jump through hoops. And we never managed to get it done. And then also, additionally, someone mentioned in the chat, children are expected in certain cultures to look after the parents.
Yeah.
But even if it's expected, it does not happen. Or the burden of it, and I have to say there's a bit of a burden, even if you're carrying it with love, it falls on one person predominantly, or two. And again, mental health. And it's unfortunately usually the female in the family, usually the younger sister. And in my case, I don't have children. I don't have a husband. I often think to myself, could I have done what I did for my mom and dad, my uncle, my brother, even my sister? She had to have a triple bypass. Could I have done what I did for them if I had had a husband, children? I have dogs. One in particular I rescued, and he started showing aggression towards the other dogs. So he's inside. I had to walk him twice, sometimes 3 times a day to ensure he did his toilet, especially if he didn't do it in the morning. And I say that I rescued him. Sorry, he rescued me. I did rescue him. Because when my dad and my uncle passed on the same weekend, okay, my uncle on the Saturday, my dad on the Sunday, I had to get up and take him for his walks. Sometimes it might be around midday on the weekend, but he was brilliant. As a rescue, even as a rescue, he was house trained. He was brilliant, and he still is brilliant. But going through my own health situations, with the menopause, trying to still eat well, making sure I ate, it's a lot. And that's why I said, don't try to have it all. Relationships? Yeah, man. I had guys wanting to go out with me. One acquaintance said to me from the very outset, Josephine, be careful, because you're going to be fresh meat. Okay? Back from the UK, I'm going to be different, and I have been told I am different. But I think I was different even before I left Trinidad because of how my parents raised us. You can be fresh meat. And yeah, Trinidadian men, Caribbean men from certain cultures, yeah, man, multiple girlfriends. They have a wife, and they still want to have multiple girlfriends. Or side chicks, as we call them here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I wasn't about that. And then I thought, well, if I got involved with someone, I'm going to feel guilty that I'm not going to be there with my mom and dad. And then if I'm with my mom and dad, I'm going to feel guilty that I'm not spending time with him.
Yeah.
Try to have it all. And just try and make more time and effort for yourself. I know a guy, he actually slept next to his mom so that he could be there if she needed anything. But for me, thankfully we had the home help. When I say home help, the nurses who came in, because my mom too ended up with a peg into her stomach when she could not swallow anymore and she was aspirating. It is where fluid or food gets into the lungs. They develop pneumonia. And I've heard of persons, especially bedridden persons, developing pneumonia. And I've often thought to myself, was it really pneumonia? Or were they aspirating and the family and the doctors did not realize? I had a fantastic doctor. She, had trained in the UK and came back. She specialized in gerontology. And thankfully, too, we were able to have the help for them.
Let me just put a
So,
pause in what you're
yes,
saying because
yes.
we're running out of time as well. And could you just run through the comments because there's a question I want to ask Josephine before we run out of time or before I lose connection totally.
Oh, so you're going back. Right. So which one? They say that I think in certain cultures, children are expected to care for their parents. I think here there's an expectation deep down. So I mean, I can tell you my Cornwall story, but I'll tell you if we have time.
Yeah.
Jane says it all depends on a relationship with your parents. My siblings and I had this conversation early on that I would contribute financially for their care, but my sister would handle physical and legal needs.
So it's good that people are having the conversation before.
Yeah. So I agreed. Says Lisa.
But then, for that sibling who's looking after the physical needs, when do they get time off?
Yeah.
When do they get to go and have a walk, try to decompress, go and see a movie? Yes?
Yeah.
When do they get that time? So, yes, the financial support is wonderful. And maybe it is that you can have someone come in to give you a break. And I know someone that happened with. But that's maybe like for a few hours once a week. That person was there with the parents or the husband, wife, all the time. And so
the
again,
average carer, are you ready for this? Works 118 hours a week. 118 hours a week. 24 hours in a day, multiply that by 7. That doesn't leave an awful lot left when you're trying to get some sleep or anything else.
Yeah.
And they say that when they say caring, they mean that they're still in the house with the people and they call that care sleep. So that means they can be woken up through the night or having to go and assist during the night. So even though you're asleep, you're still on call. So 128 hours a week. That's a lot of hours.
Yes.
No other job would you accept it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And then we talked about the finances earlier. I recall before I left the UK that if you are a full-time carer for, a family member or so, I believe you could get some sort of money from the government. May not be a lot, but of course, finances help. And even if you want to go and get your hair done because you're not working, right? And in my case, I had this stint, but again, I was getting some support from my siblings. And here in Trinidad, you don't have that. There is no support in that way with the government. We had to get medical beds, which is about £1,000, if not more, if it's the electric one to raise and lower. Because especially if you're tired, trying to raise and lower, manually, it's rough on you physically, and you're already exhausted. And I did try to get through the ministry responsible to see if we could get some sort of grants that they have for medical equipment, and talk about again jumping through hoops. And then my dad passed before we could get that sorted out. So ultimately, you got to just try and take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. If you want to put on some music, whilst you're hoovering and dance naked, do that. Okay? Because all of that has to raise your feel good hormones and at least, hopefully put a smile on your face so that you can feel strong and move forward. I met a friend of one of my sisters just 2 days ago, and she said to me, Josephine, your sister is so grateful for what you did because she's like, I couldn't do what Josephine did. Josephine was up, down, sideways, checking on them at 1 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, checking on them before going to work. When I did work, you got to try to look after yourself. However, don't try to be all and do everything. And ask for help. If they say no, at least you asked. But
Yeah, I
ask
think
for
that's
help.
a good point of asking for support. And seeing Jane has a comment in California, there are some awesome programs. Oops, when it just went, that allow elders to age with dignity in their homes, exchanging housing for companionship and caregiving. So I'm seeing a lot more ads with that as well. Of course, everywhere is different. So I would encourage anyone listening live or on the replay, investigate what you have in your hometown, in your state. Talk to persons in the hospice care, in the hospital, because they may be aware of programs that you could tap into. Because we really do need that support, especially if we're taking on that caregiver role. Josephine talked about even going on Facebook and looking at different groups. I think that that was a wonderful idea that, and she just mentioned it, but I think that was such an important idea. And we have groups like that on LinkedIn as well. So, investigate Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Your parents may be going through a particular health condition, and
Yes.
just to talk to others who are going through it, just to feel that camaraderie. Okay, someone else understands, because your siblings may not understand really what you're going through because they're not in it. They're not there every day. They may pass. They may do like Jane said. She may be just be contributing financially, but if you're the one actually doing the caregiving, that is a different level that people really don't understand unless you're doing it yourself. So reach out to family members, caregivers in your town, but also where social media, where we could just go on Gemini and type, so look for that particular group in my area. Where can I find them? So use the tools that you have around to really find that support. So
And
Josephine, you were talking about that because we have about 6 minutes again. You were talking about when we were talking at that LinkedIn live. Your comment to me was someone came up to you and they said they didn't see the joy that you had, and you went out of your way to find that joy. And I thought that when you said that, that cemented something in me, because we as women, we take care of everyone else. And yes, we may go do our nails once a month or do our hair, but
Cooking is not an inexpensive.
okay, something came. I don't know what that was. Um, but really finding your joy, I think, takes
mhm,
it up to a different level, and it's a different mindset altogether, finding your joy. So
mhm,
for people who are listening, because I know there are people in the audience, a lot of our friends are taking care of their parents,
yes.
taking care of ailing children as well. When
Mhm.
it comes to finding your joy, what do you suggest we do? How do we go about that?
Okay. So, my friend, a dear friend in London, he actually heard it in my voice that I was sounding very down and so on. And he said to me, Josephine, you love to dance. Find your joy, find your passion again. And that's why I jokingly said, although half seriously, if it is, put on some music as if, vacuum cleaning or cleaning, and just dance naked. I'd make sure the windows are closed and the curtains are drawn, but just do something for you. And if you love reading, try and find, a moment to do that. There are these different recordings now. YouTube, fantastic. I listen to so much on YouTube. Try to laugh. I mentioned earlier about the feel good hormones, and my dad the paranoia. And I actually, coming back to the dementia for the moment, I read somewhere that they will not remember what caused them to go into a mood. So if they got angry or upset, they will not remember what caused it. And they do not have the mechanisms to lift themselves out of it. But of course, my then thinking was, okay, so if he's happy and smiling, then he may not remember what caused it, but he will have those feel-good hormones running through him. So my joy was ensuring, well, one of my joys was ensuring that my mom and dad were, good, that my dad had the feel-good hormones running through him, especially at nighttime or when he was before he maybe might be sundowning. And if it is that you just like sitting and watching paint dry, if that's your joy, or bird watching, gardening, if you can go outside. And I know, because I had a small garden when I was in one of the places my sister owned. She's older than me, so she was the owner. And I would look after the garden and so on. Garden. Go outside. If you watch Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts' character said to, oh my gosh, this Richard Gere, take your shoes off, walk in the grass. I was feeling a bit blah for a while. When it's upbeat and so on, but physically I was feeling a bit blah. And I went on a hike on Saturday, walking through the forest. We went to a waterfall. I did not go into the water. I just sat, on one of the rocks with my feet in the water. And I felt so good. And even today, I'm still feeling a lot better than I was feeling on Friday evening, Saturday morning before we went on the hike. If it is, get some water, do your research. How can I bring the spa home to me? Get a bucket of water, a bowl of water, put some salt, they say. If it is that you have Epsom salts, that's supposed to be very good for you as well. Put some warm water, put the Epsom salts or some salt in the water and just soak your feet. Seek to bring the spa to you to have this self-care. If it is you can afford to get a massage, let a masseuse come home to you. Because again, that is something that I was doing from time to time, with thanks to the financial support of one of my sisters. Do what you can. Read. Just stare into space. Plan. Bucket list. Create a vision board of what you would like to do when you can, and finances and time permitting. Find your passion, find your joy, and that will help you to carry the challenge of being a caregiver for someone, whether it is parents, grandparents, spouses, children. Because, Lisa, that's another important aspect. Whether the child is a child or a 20-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old, self-care. You can't have it all, but however, remember yourself. Back to you.
Thanks. That was a lot. Thank you so much. So much gems there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lisa.
Yeah, because I think my video
You're
is frozen now.
but we can hear you.
Yeah, I restream
You're frozen, but we can still hear you.
Yes, at least I'm not frozen with my mouth open.
We're blessed. We are lucky.
I'm seeing a comment from Joshua, which I think is really lovely. And Joshua, I'm so glad that you're here.
I love all of Jane's comments. I wish we would join the studio and share. It saves me reading so much.
No, but Jane needs her own show, and we're having that soon.
Okay, cool. So Josh says, memory care is what I do most as a music therapist when I'm working with many faculties and children's cancer hospitals, stress centers, and more. Live music in all these scenarios is so powerful in healthcare settings to heal what even medicine can't. Is there more? Can't do in many ways. Is the rest of it.
Yeah, I think music is underrated a lot of times when it comes to stress relievers, and also dealing with patients who have dementia or anything like that. I think music heals. And
Lisa, Charles's mom still goes to singing once a week, and she can remember all the words. So
wow,
it's mad, isn't it? They can't put
yes,
together a sentence, but they can sing along and remember all the words. It's
exactly.
different part of memory, of the
Mm,
muscle memory, and it is amazing. Music does amazing
yeah,
things.
yeah. Thank you
And
for that, Joshua.
when my dad went into, because I was starting to go to the phase where he could not get his attention, I would put on one of his favorite singers, Mario Lanza, and it's like mentally he'll come back into the room. And I remember one year, it was a time, this was maybe about 2 years after his diagnosis, he was still speaking. I put on Mario Lanza, an Italian American guy, and my dad is sitting there. We had a lady that we were interviewing as a potential caregiver, and she nudged me and said, "Look, when I looked at my dad, he was shaking his head at the third song and actually said along the lines of, 'The stupid man gone and dead,' which is basically colloquial Trini English for saying, 'The stupid man died.'" Such was the bitterness from my dad that his favorite singer of all time, even more so than Caruso, if you're familiar with him, died. And this is like 1958. But yeah, coconut water, he's saying donkey water. My name, he can remember my name, Jojo. He was calling me. My mom, he would hear my mom move. He'd look back over his shoulder and go, "Who's him?" But each person's journey is different. If you can play the music of their time, or if they were a musician, or take them singing, and I would encourage my dad to sing too. Sometimes I would have him, I would say the words and then have him repeat it. Also, another quick tip: if he's feeling paranoid, I would say to him, I am safe. I was saying at first, "You are safe," but in his head, he had to talk to himself. So I'd have him saying, "I am safe. I am at home." And I'd have him, saying the address. So I tell him what to say. I am with loved ones. I am safe. Because he also thought that my sister-in-law who'd do the cooking for him and my mom, they're trying to poison him. So he wouldn't want to eat. And that is really hard to see and having to reassure. So yes, you as a caregiver need to take time for you. Even if it's 5 minutes, or like I said, bring the spa to you. Yes. Get the materials, give yourself a manicure, pedicure. You can still be sitting there in the room with your loved one, or be there watching them eat and to ensure they eat. And you could be doing, your nails or so, massaging your hands, study, acupuncture on YouTube or so, just to make sure that you're looking after you. And then, well, menopause is again it's written for the ladies, or the menopause for the men. You too have to look after yourself, everyone, and yeah, just take time to also pat yourself on the back and saying, "You know what, I'm doing the best that I can," and self-care, self-love.
Exactly.
Joshua has just posted that memory care is what he does most as a music therapist. When he's worked with many facilities, and live music is just so powerful in healthcare settings to heal whatever medicine can't. And yes, Joshua, I applaud you, kudos to you, and keep up the great work.
Yeah,
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 Joshua is an amazing musician and singer. Yeah, if you get a chance to hear him, it's really incredible.
I
His
agree.
voice can really heal you.
I agree. Look, and I guess the point is whether you do it alone or even as a family, there's a lot of support out there. You know, there's
It
many.
depends on the country you're in.
Yes.
Annie, it depends on the country you're in.
Yeah, but I'm even seeing Serena saying that there's a WhatsApp group for
Yeah.
caregivers. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for that, Serena.
That's international. Jane talks about
Neither was I.
the different groups, of different people that actually do value going to support the elderly. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
and that's why I suggested
groups.
talking to hospice care workers, the hospital workers, the nurses, because a lot of times we're not aware of programs that are available to us. Yes, it's a lot better maybe in the UK or the US, but no matter where you are in the world, even your church groups, your community centers, reach out to them and find out what's available. And maybe you're the one to create that something, create that support group for the area where you live, for the
Yeah.
caregivers around you. Maybe that's something that you need to do because, like we've been saying all show, we need that support, especially if you're the one doing that caregiving for
Yeah.
parents, for children, for whoever's in your family.
And also, if your finances are tight, see what else. So you mentioned, your church. I'm a very bad Christian. Okay, I don't go to church. However, there is a church close to me that they have a chapel that's open 24/7 and air conditioned, cold. So I take a blanket and sometimes I just sit there. The only prayer I know is the Lord's Prayer, but I just sit there. And, yes, there are times when I have a good cry, and then times I'd fall asleep because I'm just so exhausted. If if finances are tight, look to see what is free. Or even if they're not, play a game with yourself. What can I do? Not spending more than £10 or 10 US a day. Make a game, make games with yourself. And just try to bring your own fun into that situation.
I agree. I agree. I agree. Well, Coach Carrie, how are you doing? Glad you were here. I think I mentioned you earlier. I think I did. I've forgotten now.
I don't think you did know.
Different room. That's the point. Actually, yeah,
Yeah.
collection room. So Charita, how you doing? Well, late night as always. She says, I'm sure.
Well, it's 6 a.m., half six in the
That's late
morning where
night.
she is.
That's
Yeah.
late night, Lisa. Late
Well,
night. How we look
okay,
at.
for us normal persons,
Hmm.
yes, I know that's probably the time you're now going to
Right.
bed.
Yep, I am.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Look, Paulette mentioned it earlier. Partners of caregivers play an important role too. They do. They do. Not all men are. Yeah. Yeah. That word, the B word. Let's not. No, that is not true. So the story I was gonna say, literally, I moved to Cornwall because of my wife's parents. They're still there, and as they're in the 80s, they're living a good life. Yeah, slightly mad, slightly, but they're old. That's the problem, right? And the only way that she was going that. My wife did spend 6 months going to Cornwall and back, and then staying there weekends to work for about say for a good 6 months. And they should say, all right, we have to move. And I was like, no, I'm staying in London. Then we had to move. So now we're in Cornwall. But even then, it's hard work. Of course, so my wife works. She runs care homes. Yeah, the irony of it all. But literally, you know, she has to make time to go and see them. And I didn't know so well, after work usually, she just go and see them. Of course, then and they do what old people do, which I think is fun. They're rude half the time. They're racist as well. So I have to suffer who they are. And all my kids have to suffer the same thing as well because we're brown. And I think once you get to 75, you can be just get it out of your system whatever is wrong with you. Right? And they do. They smoke, they drink. They're not partying. They're just doing debauchery, getting old in a disgraceful kind of way.
They are enjoying the end of their days.
They burn plastic in the fireplace. You're like, why are you burning plastic when you can just burn wood? Hello. But there's but say my wife is exhausted literally because she at Christmas she has to cook their meal because they won't come out because they want to be in their place. There is she's got a brother who does. He's the apple of their eyes, but he doesn't do the caring role, which is just weird, right? He goes around every so often, but it's on us to do what we have to do. So literally, it takes all of us. And I say I've had to take them to doctor's appointments when they haven't got a car. So we'll get to a stage now where they're going to ban over 80s from driving. I think it's coming soon, Paulette. They're like, so they don't want to have a driving license. So, but it takes a whole family and more to perform this role because any one person will just be shattered. Because it is as well as work, as well as menopause, as well as everything else that we're talking about today.
The banning of the driving is terrifying because that's the one thing that Charles' dad has got is the independence of putting her in the car, bringing her down to see Liz, coming around to see us, spending some time with us, and then driving back to Derby. And if he can't drive, that's going to be on us to go to Derby.
Yeah, every time. Every time. It's not
Have
just
you met Charles? Have you met Charles?
Charles is lovely. He
is absolutely lovely, but he ain't bloody driving back towards Derby in 5 minutes. I can assure you.
It's not just driving to Derby, is it? Because you have to take me shopping. You have to take me everywhere.
Well, I know what's going to end up happening is we've offered for them to move down here. They don't want to. So that means she'll either have to go back and move up there, leave her place here for her, but go and stay with them for a little while and see what happens. But she works in a shop, so she's not like, a massively high wage earner. They could pay her what she's earning as a carer. So there's ways around it, but it always falls on one. I don't care what anybody says, it always falls on one. And it's normally the female. Sorry to say this, guys, but it is normally the female.
As I said earlier, it's normally the female and usually the youngest daughter.
Well, in our case, we've only got one of each, and she's the girl. So, and that will be, a horrible conversation. I just know it. Where we'll be able to say, but look, we own the house. You can leave the house. You can come back at weekends and see the house. We'll go down for a weekend to look after them. You can come home. Try it that way. But I don't know how the hell it's going to work out in the future. I have no clue.
See, I think my greatest fear, it's not my greatest fear. We know it's coming. The problem is when one of them goes, because we must then house the other one, the remaining person. And I think Josephine mentioned that earlier, and I say, when one goes, you can't just leave them in the house. You have to do something. Something has to give, and something's given. Something's gone. One of them's gone. That's. I think for us, the only thing we can plan for is whether we create an extension, like you were saying, an out, a granny flat in the back or something somewhere.
Or spare bedroom.
That's from the spare bedroom.
That's what you're fortunate enough to have. If I may say, if you can have the conversation of what they want for their funeral, because for me, that was a lot of angst as well of what to do. Again, not going to church, I had no clue. And so, one of the nurses guided me. She said, for your dad, buy him some new clothes. And I involved my mom. She was amazing. And she was like, okay. I said, well, shall I get him a jacket? No. He never was a jacket person. Shall I get him long sleeve? No. Short sleeve. So she had an input. And I think also it helped as part of her grieving process. For me, I wish we had tried to look at some of those details beforehand. Because additional stress And then each sibling wanted to have their say. A dear acquaintance, amazing guy, he passed a few weeks ago. He was 51. He had had 2 rounds of cancer and diabetes. He lost part of his leg and had to be amputated and so on. But when I spoke with some friends of his at the funeral, they said that he had actually planned his funeral beforehand and tried to know who they wanted to sing what, because he was a singer, well-known singer and media personality, who was to sing what songs, and his wife or his friend said it took a lot of stress away from them because he developed an infection, so he passed. It's kind of expected, but it was still unexpected when it happened. And then his wife has her own health challenges, quite severe. So it took a lot of pressure off of her and the friends from school days, 50 years old, friends for like 30, 40 years. They were then able to say, well, okay, this is Raymond's wishes. This is what he wants. This is what he wants sung. Lisa, you're singing Hallelujah. In Annie, you're singing God Save the Queen.
God help us. God help us. I think we're trying to give
planned.
a happy send off. We said, me and Lisa are singing.
Yes.
No. There is a point.
Roll.
I think that there's a big point here, and I'm thinking back to my friend Scott Stewart's book before we die. And now the best time to have the conversation is now, today. Don't wait until they're on their deathbed. Have conversation when you can talk properly rather than being emotional and under duress. That's not the time. When someone's on the deathbed, you don't say when you want to start having serious conversations. Yeah, and yes, no, some people might react differently when they think you're trying to wish them dead. Basically, that's the point, right? But you have to just be grown up enough to say, look, we have to know, and there's no other way of doing it without you telling us, right?
And I'm one of six.
Just a quick one. What we did was we said, look what's happened to Jamie and Debbie. Look what's happened with her mum. You don't want that to happen to your house. You've worked all your lives for that property. Do you really want 50% of it to be just taken? At least put 50% of it in, like, to child and lives now, or at least do this now, or at least and you can do that. You can put it in trust, and that's the way to do it. And it's a horrible conversation, but we use the excuse that we'd heard from Jamie and Debbie, right? You could use the excuse that you've listened to a show and it made you think about this, that, and the other, right? Use Lisa as an example. Lisa's show, and it made me think, and therefore blah. Yeah, there has to be a conversation. It starts with being adult enough. I mean, Charles's mum's not there now. Charles, she's not. She's not capable of making big decisions. She doesn't even understand money anymore. So it's really complicated, and so she's not going to be the person that can do that. Charles's dad can. Everything is in his rucksack now. So like we talked about menopause, they're in their 80s. We're not talking about menopause. We're just talking about absolute hellish stress. And if you're dealing with that and you're in menopause, God help you, because I'm seeing what it's doing to him, and he's a shadow of who he used to be. And she says she forgets to eat, and I said to her, but you have lunch? And she's like, I don't know. And then I'm like, are they not eating? And then Charles like, don't say anything because I'll talk to my dad. But she's having a sandwich every lunchtime, but she's just forgotten. And it's so heartbreaking. So, please, if everything I've said today is of any use at all, it's have the conversation as soon as you can.
And to add to that, we perhaps could use the excuse of the family, if you're one of several siblings, like me, 6 of us. 2 took a bit of a back seat with the funeral. But can you imagine 4 people trying to arrange a funeral? So you can perhaps also say to your parents or husband or wife, let's do this now whilst you can, so that we don't have the family fighting. Do we bury dad in blue trousers, or would he have preferred red, or should he have a tie? Let's document all of this, and if anyone wants to beg to differ, you can say, here it is. And something else quickly I want to touch on is that, from what I learned from the Facebook groups, there's called a living will, or imagine actually, living will. If it is that they don't want to be resuscitated, have that documented. Because one sibling might say, let's try this, let's try that, let's give them another 2 months. But they're not going to necessarily. And as I said to the doctor, and as I would say to the doctor, I'm not interested in prolonging their life. It's their quality of life. And it's a fine distinction, but ultimately it's their quality of life and then yours. And that's, as I started at the beginning, I said that I did not want to lose myself. And I sought to keep my skills up. And now with Coursera and even YouTube, AI, try to see what you can create, with all the free things that there are. Because again, I'll come back to expenses and finances. So it's you not to lose yourself. Because when they're gone and your reason for being has gone, I started thinking, oh my gosh, we're now in 2026. I'm still in 2014 with the technology. Can I still get a job? How can I retrain? And then you're battling your health and menopause on top of all of that. And trying to have the energy to go out there and do these things to upskill. Yeah. Just try to make life as easy as possible now.
Again, one of the things about getting old that people don't mention too often, but it's a harsh reality, is that many of their friends go before them. I say, I've had my wife's gran before, say passed away a few years ago, and her thing was that I don't know anyone. Everyone I know is dead. What's the point of me being alive? Well, luckily she lived just literally across the alleyway from our house, so back garden, straight into her garden. So that's how we survived that one. So make friends is a point, I think, Josephine. Make friends, have a network of friends at least. That you have an identity. You don't give it all away, and I've seen people today who literally they're lost because their parents are gone. And it's a reality that not many will talk about, but it's an important one, I think, Josephine. Good point to make. So let's finish on some of the comments. So I think Dr. Marcia is agreeing with you in terms of self-care, intentional self-care, she says, is needed. It's having that plan, and I guess that's what Lisa does. So it does having your health, your wealth, and everything else that comes with menopause to navigate that journey. Because we have to be very intentional. We can't just be leave it to chance, right? We might come unstuck. Josh, I like your point as well. Of course, I do. I always love Josh's points. They may forget many things. Does Lisa come back? Yeah. I like how she messages me, so I can't see her. I can't see her hiding in the bottom of my screen.
Oh my gosh, and I'm frozen again.
It's time to go. That's why, Lisa.
Yes, exactly. I think the universe is trying to tell me something.
Well, we'll still hear you.
And you're frozen.
Yes.
Yeah. But as I say, no, they never forget music and what it meant to them. So maybe that's the thing we'll take away from today for sure. And let's tap into the power of music. for aging parents. God,
Yeah.
I dread to
And,
think what music they'll come out with.
Yes,
and
I think
if you
that's a good way to end.
yeah. And also, much add, if you are listening, like what you heard, would like some, I'm happy to talk on this topic, obviously. So if it is that you have a group or so, remote, hybrid, I'm happy to speak on, further on this. Because as Lisa said, we need to speak about these things because otherwise you feel so alone and isolated.
Yeah,
Back to you,
Yeah.
Annie
So
and
please
Lisa.
connect with
yeah,
Josephine. Josephine, if you could leave
yeah,
your link on the LinkedIn. Don't leave it on Restream. Put
yeah.
it on LinkedIn so that people can
Yes,
connect with you.
yeah,
Just wanted to say thank you for. I know this was kind of short notice, and you had another event today, but you were able to share with us so many great tips. Really appreciate getting to know you. I mean, it feels like I've known you for a while, although we just met 2 weeks ago. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Annie and Paulette, always for being part of this crazy group. I thank you for everyone who shared any comments, who showed up. A really engaged group today. Really love the comments. That music therapy, I think, is so important. That is what I respond to as well. So I'm all for the music.
yeah.
But please, if you're watching on
There
replay,
is
please.
there is an end where Josh says thank you all for these very informative conversations.
Okay.
I don't know why
Thank
Rich
you for
doesn't
being here.
show that bit, right?
Yeah. So please, if you're watching on replay, let us know what your thoughts are.
Mm,
If you are struggling with caregiving, what solutions you've used,
mm.
and if there's anything that you've are struggling with when it pertains to perimenopause and menopause, especially, please, I think the lesson from today is get that support. So please reach out, send me a DM. Let's chat and see how we can support you.
Yeah. Again, I think Jay.
Maybe any, maybe there's an option here, Lisa, as an extension of what you're doing with menopause, to actually set up a separate LinkedIn page and a LinkedIn group to support people who are in this situation, that are on LinkedIn, because it's probably not something that's been discussed here. Maybe on WhatsApp, maybe on Facebook, but
Yeah.
LinkedIn, maybe not. So that's something that perhaps Josephine could take on as an option if that's something she's interested in, because we definitely have a need. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah, and we're lucky that we're in such a very supportive community as it
Thank you.
is. So I think, yeah, I mean, I have no problem with that at all. We connect in these rooms, but the conversation after to connect and to share, that's definitely something we could look into.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
creating a community, I think, could be useful, as you said.
yeah.
So,
So I do have another meeting now. So that question from Jane, Josephine, I'm not sure if you're seeing it, but if you could go on LinkedIn and respond, if you have any suggestions as well. I think the more we share is the more we could support each other. So what we'll do is we'll go through the comments and make sure if there's any question we missed, we'll answer it in the comment section on LinkedIn.
you
So
know,
thank you again, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate it.
for-
So many people around the world, and you all show up here. So I'm really grateful for that.
yeah, I think that question is for everyone. I think it's for everyone who's who's giving care, especially those in menopause. I think you have to look, be aware of you first, right? I
Yeah,
think that's what she's getting at. Ask yourself the question: what gaps are you experiencing, and then support to seek.
yeah. Reach out and see where that support is coming from. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I thank you. Well, thank you too, Lisa. You always bring these informative gems. So well done, you. Right. Now she's not
Thank
going to respond
you.
unless she should. Now, yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm here. Just my
I do
I
it.
couldn't.
I do
My
it.
computer does not like Restream for some
That's
reason. So you all have a good
Take care, everyone. Take care,
day
everyone.
and
Thank you,
yeah.
Take
Josephine. Too.
care. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye, everyone.
Every step forward is a new beat to your drama. She's success with Global.Media. celebrate it with or without champagne or rum. Achieve success with Global.Media.